Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here with another hot take. And this is another tragic thing. This is a headline from the New York Post. Black man shot dead by Atlanta cops in Wendy's drive thru. Unfortunately, this is kind of a misleading uh, headline. And even more misleading is the original headline, apparently. If you look, you can't see it, but in the address, normally when you post on, say, like WordPress, right, and you put your title in, the WordPress site, which is the software that makes the post, will take the title and put it as part of the name of the link. So in this case, it's newyorkpost.com 220 slash 06 slash 13, the date, and then comes what was probably the original headline. I don't know that for sure, but here's what it may have originally said: unarmed black man shot dead by the cops in a Wendy's drive-thru. Because that's not true. If you watch the video, not this particular video, but there's another one online from a better angle, what you'll see is what happened. And again, this is tragic. I'm not saying this is a good thing at all. But the individual who was shot, Rashad, I don't remember his last name, he was apparently drunk and in a Wendy's drive-thru, and he passed out. And he was there so long that they called the cops, and the cops came, and they were very nice to him. They said, first it took him a while to wake him up, and then they told him to go park. And when he parks, he kind of goes over the space a little bit. And look, to me, watching the video, the guy looks drunk. Okay, so the only thing that really remained for the cops to do was to prove that he's drunk and take him into custody. So if he wasn't drunk, then he certainly was impaired. Now maybe it was a combination of him being tired and he had a few drinks. Whatever. He shouldn't be driving if he drives like that. If you pass out in a drive-through, a fast food drive-through, and then you can't even pull into a parking space, you shouldn't be driving. You're a danger. All right? Now, imagine if these cops had said, okay, well, we'll see you later, and let him go, and then this guy ended up smashing into a car and killing 4 people. Would people be protesting and burning down a Wendy's in the aftermath? I don't think so. They would say, oh, these cops, they're idiots. They let that guy go. He was going to be arrested. From the moment he passed out in a Wendy's drive-thru, he probably should spend the night in jail. Now, beyond that, I don't think he should be punished. I think he should have just been put in a drunk tank to sober up and hopefully come to the conclusion, oh, man, where's my life going that I passed out in a Wendy's drive-thru and whatever. The next thing that happens, though, in the video, and this is a long video, like if you watch it, they edit it down. They're talking to him, and then they give him a sobriety test. Now, you can refuse a sobriety test. They can still arrest you. Now, he clearly doesn't know his rights because he goes, well, I guess I got to take the test. You're making me take the test. That's, again, this all goes back to what libertarians say. People should know their rights, and cops, should be depowered. They shouldn't have all this power over you. But the thing is, someone called the cops. He passed out in a Wendy's drive-thru. Someone wanted him out of the way and moved. Now, it could have been that the Wendy's employees called the cops. So my advice to you and anyone listening is don't call the cops on something like this. If you got a guy passed out in the drive-thru, what you do is you send out the manager, and he knocks on the door and he says, sir, you're passed out in the drive-thru. I'm going to need you to, please pull over and then call a ride for yourself. And then if the guy gives you trouble, well, he'll probably just leave and you'll never see him again. that's not necessarily going to keep him from running somebody over or getting into a horrible car accident, but you shouldn't involve the cops unless you have to. Your problem was a guy was asleep in the drive-thru. That was everybody's problem, right? The people in the drive-thru were sitting behind him waiting and waiting and waiting for the cops to do something. Don't involve the cops. That's my advice. So you involve the cops. I mean, you called them. That's partly on you. He is totally normal until they try to arrest him. And he's drunk. He should be arrested. Now, should he go to jail? No. He probably wasn't going to go to jail. They would put him in a drunk tank. He'd get a court summons, and he'd be on his way the next morning. But he'd be horribly inconvenienced. Now, he starts struggling with the cops, like big time. Dude, you don't struggle with the cops. And the cops were being nice to him. They were being super polite and nice to him. And even when they start to struggle, they say to him, don't resist, we're going to tase you. Now, at that point, he could have just stopped, and they would have arrested him. And he would have been in more trouble, but whatever. But he thinks he can overpower them and run away. And he overpowers them. He gets a hold of one of the tasers. And it looks to me, as he's running away, he points the taser at them. Now, they had already tased him, and he kept running. So, I mean, the guy's 27. Maybe he's in super great shape. Maybe he was on something more than just having a couple of drinks. Who knows? But it looks to me like he is running and kind of turns back with the taser. Man, you point a weapon at a cop, whether it's a taser, a knife, a gun, anything, they can shoot you. I mean, this is basic information. I would never point anything at a cop. I wouldn't point a pen at a cop. I wouldn't point my finger at a cop, especially if I had just broken his hold. If you're going to run away from the cops, which is a stupid thing to do, by the way, do not pick up a weapon. Keep running. Just keep running. Now, he was in a lot of trouble either way. If he had, let's say the cops let him get away. Okay, he runs away. He leaves his car behind. They already know who he is. He's going to jail. He's going to jail. You know? And maybe that should be the result. If you run away from the cops, then they let you go. They don't take, as long as you don't have a weapon, they just let you run away. And then they just impound your car, and then they'll serve a warrant at your home where they're going to kick in the door and bring like 20 cops. I guess. I mean, if that's the kind of system you want. What would the people in this Wendy's drive-thru and the community have the cops do to this guy? He looked impaired. He looked impaired to me. I think he'd look impaired to anybody. He shouldn't have been behind the wheel. He fell asleep in a Wendy's drive-thru. What do you want the cops to do? Oh, we don't want you to kill him. Yeah, I don't want him to kill him either. But the guy fought with the cops. He picked up a weapon. I mean, that's not good. So, how far is this allowed to go where you don't shoot a suspect? Cops don't, the guy had a taser. I mean, that's not a deadly weapon, but he's shooting it at cops. So imagine he, I don't know what was going through his mind, but imagine he manages to stun both the cops. What was going to happen next? Would he kill them? Would he take their guns next and then kill them and take off? Or would he just get into his car and drive away? You don't know what was going to happen. I mean, when you watch the video, he just suddenly starts to fight the cops. I mean, I was shocked too. I'm watching the video going, this doesn't look like a typical video where a guy gets shot and it's horrible. That wasn't what happened to George Floyd. George Floyd was horrendous. You can see clearly on that video, they should not have done that to George Floyd. He's begging for his life. This guy was not begging for his life. He was fighting the cops. You can't fight the cops. There is no scenario where you physically fight cops that's good. None. Okay? I mean, I guess if you think the cops are going to kill you, I don't know what would lead this guy to think that. The cops were being extremely polite, and this was a DUI situation. Cops don't normally, shoot a guy in DUI situations. They just take you in and throw you in the drunk tank. They do it all the time. It would have been different if they, caught him, I don't know, robbing a place and he had a weapon. He didn't until he stole one from the cop. So, and then the response is you've burned down a Wendy's drive-through, local people, or a Wendy's. You've burned down a whole Wendy's. First off, Wendy's had nothing to do with this. They're completely innocent. It just happened at Wendy's. If this is going to be the response of your community, then Wendy's isn't coming back. I wouldn't rebuild the Wendy's there. Take the insurance money and say, good luck, community. When you get sensible community standards, maybe we'll come back. If your community standards is going to be, well, sometimes you got to fight with the cops and take their weapons. Okay, you might as well defund the police right now and abolish them because you're just asking for chaos. This is, now I don't know if it's considered justifiable because they did shoot him, but I mean, he did have a weapon. He did fight the cops. I don't know what he expected to have happen to him. I don't know what you expect the cops to do. Would you allow a crazy, I don't know if he was crazy, a potentially drunk guy to run around your neighborhood with a taser? Does that sound like something you're okay with? If your kids are around or you're outside raking leaves and a guy who's just run from the cops comes running down the street and he's got a taser and he says, "Give me your car. I got to get away from the cops." I mean, that didn't happen. It could. Was this guy a criminal? I don't know. He certainly didn't use his best judgment. When you've fallen asleep in a Wendy's drive-thru and the cops wake you up, you have to know you've made a mistake, and you're probably going to get, at the very least, you're going to get a court summons. If you're lucky, you might get home. If you're lucky and say to the cops, "Hey, listen, I'll call somebody for a ride, I won't drive, and they'll come pick me up," or whatever. I mean, this guy fell asleep in a Wendy's drive-thru, and he couldn't drive, I don't think, and I don't think, he reacted appropriately. But, you've got the media already sort of assuming the narrative. Like this New York Post article, unarmed black man. Well, he wasn't unarmed when he was shot. He had the taser. So, if you're just going to add this name to the list, that devalues the list. This isn't the same as George Floyd. And this is why, the whole message gets muddled. You have to have specific reforms. This is not a case of specific reforms, unless you're okay with people fighting with the cops, taking their weapons, and running away. I don't think most people are. This is just, well, somebody got shot. We're going to burn down the community, I guess. But I think it's a bad idea. I think that's going to lead to fewer cops in your neighborhood and more crime. I think most people would look at this and say, that guy was in the wrong. It's a shame he got shot. But if he had just gone with the cops and taken his summons, that's all it would have been. It would have been a summons. He would have had to appear in court, and they would have fined him, and he would have been on his way. Unless this was like his third strike or something. And maybe it was. Maybe that's why he freaked out. Maybe that's why he fought the cops, because he's like, "Oh no, my whole life is ruined." But that's partly on him. It's on him for resisting the cops. It's on him for getting drunk. He made those decisions. Are we to remake the entire community around this guy's poor decisions? Are you going to sit there and tell me this is racial? No. There are plenty of people of all colors who go about their business, go through a Wendy's drive-through, and have no problems. None. And they continue to live and breathe. And if they had a problem with the cops, they wouldn't even think about taking one of their weapons, much less resisting arrest. They would quietly go with the cops and take their court summons, knowing their rights. So, it's a tragedy. It is. But I don't know. I don't know what you expect. I really don't. And to burn down the Wendy's, that's just sending more people to jail. They're going to find out who burned down that Wendy's. Oh, you're in big trouble. Arson is no joke. That's, I believe that's a felony. I believe it's a felony under any circumstances. And at the very least, it's going to cost you the price of the Wendy's, which I'm sure the people rioting probably don't have that kind of money. I'm sure it's not millionaires rioting. I sincerely doubt it. Although these days, who knows? Who knows? Anyhow, that's it. Very sad.